Good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:45, so we are going to get started with the Achieve launch. We want to extend a warm welcome to all of our school system leaders from across Louisiana who have joined us today, and all those who joined our early childhood team that just ended for the Believe launch. We want to also welcome you. We're really excited to have the Achieve launch this afternoon. So today we're providing important information around the newest ESSER funding and how it can be used to support students and educators in responding to the impacts of the pandemic. So we'll begin by kind of grounding ourselves in the agency's goals and priorities before unpacking some specifics about our funding. And then I will turn it over to Katie Perry, who will walk through the Achieve planning guidance and support, which includes high impact initiatives and resources. As a reminder throughout this call, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to submit those in the chat. We do have an FAQ that covers a lot of content, and an updated version will be released today. We also encourage you to submit all questions through the LDOE Grants Help Desk at la.gov. so that we can log and make sure that those questions are included in our FAQ. In January, the department released the Believe to Achieve Educational Priorities, which serves as the department's roadmap to improving outcomes for all students who call Louisiana home. We're driven by a vision and a mission that's centered on getting the best outcomes for all of our kids. It's our vision that every child can reach their full potential no matter where they're from, how much money their family makes, or where they live. And we're going to get there by giving all students the opportunities and tools they deserve so they are prepared to graduate high school ready for a career or college. And these 8 belief statements anchor our vision, representing what we believe as a state. Believe to Achieve also includes Louisiana's 6 critical goals in the new priorities that will direct our efforts to support the systems as we work together to achieve our critical goals. So our vision for Louisiana students is ambitious and attainable. Together, these 6 critical goals outline a student's successful progression from birth through graduation. Together with our educators, our leaders, community members, and families, it is our responsibility to make sure that every student enters kindergarten ready, exits 3rd grade reading on level, and they're ready for 4th grade. They exit 8th grade ready for success in high school. They graduate on time with a college credit or career credential, and that they're eligible for a Louisiana scholarship. To help us work towards achieving our 6 critical goals, we've established 5 priorities. Each priority includes focus areas with key actions and initiatives. These priorities drive the initiatives and resources that are encompassed within Achieve planning guidance document. The purpose of this document is really to support our systems in determining and planning for the use of the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds in alignment with these 5 priorities. So on April 15th, Governor John Bel Edwards signed a proclamation closing K-12 public schools in Louisiana to students until the end of the year, with students getting their education via remote learning in an effort to fight the spread of COVID-19. Since Louisiana's school facilities first closed in response to the pandemic, school systems and the department prioritized the safety of students and staff. In anticipation of those school facility closure and modified operations in 2020 and 2021 academic year, the department focused on supporting our school systems with preparing for a strong start, developing comprehensive plans to ensure all students had access to continuous quality teaching and learning, whether virtual, in person, or hybrid. Now, 1 year later, we are working with school systems to create comprehensive plans that prioritize safety with additional efforts focused on getting back to in-person teaching and learning safely, assessing and addressing academic needs and accelerate learning, and meeting the social, emotional, and mental health needs of our students and our educators. The purpose of the Achieve Planning Guide is really to support our school systems in determining and planning for the use of the new funds to help them achieve their priorities. In just 1 year, we've made tremendous progress, ranking as one of the top states in the country for in-person instruction. From day one, our administration has held a firm belief that we must do everything in our power to support schools with opening their doors for learning. Achieving this is a testament to our educators, the teachers, leaders, and support staff on the front lines, continuing to provide instruction, meals, and support services to our students. With this new influx of resources, we're confident that our schools can create safe environments for all students to return to in-person learning and address those social, emotional, and academic needs. So to address the impact of COVID-19, Congress provided financial support for districts and schools through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, or ESSER, in 3 separate stimulus programs. First, in March 2020, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or CARES, included $13 billion in ESSER funds. The main purpose of these funds were to ensure that students and educators had the device and connectivity needed for remote learning. In December 2020, an additional $54 billion of ESSER 2 was allocated through the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, or CRSA. These funds were provided to help school systems measure and address learning loss. Most recently in March, the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, authorized another $122 billion for ESSER 3, and these funds are really focused on reopening school doors and keeping them open so students can return to in-person learning safely. The ESSER 3 funds specifically mention how they can be used to help our schools not only open, but in alignment with the CDC prevention and guidance. There are additional funds to make sure that those facilities remain safe. Although the ESSER 2 funds are similar to those of ESSER 1, there are important distinctions. Unlike ESSER 1, LEAs aren't required to provide equitable services to non-public schools under ESSER 2. Everything allowable in ESSER 1 is allowable in ESSER 2 with the addition of new additional costs such as repairs and improvements to facilities, air quality improvements, and efforts to ensure there is funds available to measure and address learning loss for our students, particularly our high-needs students. Similar to ESSER 2, for ESSER 3, LEAs are not required to provide equitable services to non-public schools. And everything allowable under ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 is still allowable under ESSER 3. But there are a few important distinctions for ESSER 3, including the LEA and SEA reservation requirement for evidence-based activities. LEAs must also seek public comment on their plans for safe return to in-person instruction and post those on their website. And lastly, there's a new maintenance of equity requirement. We'll get more into that in just a minute. So to support the development and implementation of these plans, again, Congress has allocated a substantial amount of funds through the ESSER funds under the 3 stimulus packages. These allocations were based on the Title I and made available to states through the past 3 stimulus funds. So under the CARES Act, Louisiana was allocated 258 million ESSER formula funds, and more than 25 of those were sent out through incentive and special allocations for our LEAs. School systems submitted those plans and budgeted for those funds in the Strong Start application. In December 2020, Congress approved the CRSA Act, which dedicated another $54.3 billion, and Louisiana got more than $1 billion, and that was flowed out to our LEAs, and we've given, today we'll be given 50% of that allocation. And then again, earlier this month, an additional $122 billion of ESSER was approved under ARPA. Louisiana's formula allocation to LEAs will total more than $2.3 billion. Both ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 are the funds that will be made available and budgeted under Achieve. So 90% of our allocation will flow out directly to school systems. Of this allocation for ESSER 3, school systems must use at least 20% of their share to provide evidence-based interventions to meet the social, emotional, and academic needs of their students and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on students and families living in deep poverty, students with disabilities, English learners, migrant students, students experiencing homelessness, and children in foster care. Evidence-based interventions could include high-dosage tutoring, high-quality, robust summer learning experiences, including enrichment, comprehensive after-school opportunities, or extended school year programs. To help school systems track and report on this 20%, a separate section has been created in the Achieve application. Katie will share more about that in just a moment, but please note that this requirement of LEAs to reserve 20% based on evidence-based interventions LEAs can certainly exceed this in order to best serve their students. So the department is going to release both the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 allocations to school systems in 2 action periods. Information on the ESSER 2 allocations has already been provided to school systems, but we're including it here so that we can get a comprehensive view of what will be in the Achieve application. We're doing it in 2 action periods to support strategic and coordinated response efforts and ensure that school systems are spending the first money first. And then lastly, to help school systems make sure that they're meeting that 20% requirement. So this 2-action approach really will give time, the adequate planning time for the new funding. And just as a reminder, we would highly encourage our school systems to not delay in spending down their ESSER 1 funds first. Again, the 20% of ESSER 3 funds are specific for evidence-based interventions. In the application, this is called ESSER 3 EB for evidence-based. Therefore, any activities you are planning for ESSER 2 or maybe even ESSER 1 that meet that evidence-based intervention definition, we encourage you to consider budgeting it using those ESSER 3 EB funds. And here's a quick look just at our timeline. And to support school systems in using this money in a strategic, priorities-based manner, we're releasing a guidance document with evidence-based best practices. This guidance will be continually updated with new information and resources. Today, we'll post the ESSER 3 estimated allocations on the website, and we will drop that link into the chat at the end of the call. Tomorrow, your applications in EGMS will be opened, and school systems can begin entering their budgets. Those are due on April 30th. Our team will be reviewing those applications in May, and by June, those budgets will be approved and LEAs can start drawing down their funds. ESSER funds can be leveraged for a wide range of activities to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. Additionally, ESSER funds do not include a supplement, not supplant provision, providing additional flexibility in budgeting to meet the needs of addressing the impact of the COVID pandemic. In developing plans, remember, ESSER funding is a non-recurring emergency aid. This is one-time funding. Accordingly, consider how this funding might interact with your other federal, state, and local funding and the role of enhanced funding flexibilities to promote sustainable use. Please continue to prioritize equity in your planning and consider how such investments can accelerate the opportunities, particularly for those with the greatest need. School systems will identify a team of individuals to collaborate and coordinate strategic planning. This could include the chief academic officer, federal programs director, special education, or early childhood coordinators, and other key personnel to develop the system's comprehensive plan, implementing the same process school systems use for Super App. They will first identify priorities in alignment with the Louisiana's educational priorities. Then secondly, create budgets in alignment with those priorities and focus areas to prepare, prevent, and respond to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Third, school systems will implement their plans with continued support from the department, partners, and other organizations. Katie will go into more details about the specific steps school systems should take with the Achieve planning. Now I will invite Burnell Cook, our Executive Director of Federal Support and Grantee Relations, to share some specific information about a new pre-approval process and reporting.
Thank you, Danielle, and good afternoon, everyone. So I want to take a few minutes and discuss with you the pre-approval process. So we know that many of you are considering, various ways to improve your facilities and increase mitigation and prevention efforts. Some of the equipment and capital expenditures that you would like to fund, they require pre-approval. This is all captured, and most of the business managers and federal program directors are familiar with EGAR. And so in EGAR, the secretary has given the Department of Education the authority to approve these types of expenditures for states, but they've also given the LDOE, which we're known as the pass-through entity, the authority to approve these types of purchases for all of our school systems. And you'll see here on this slide, we have some examples: general equipment purchases such as vans, buses, land purchases, building purchases, improvement to general equipment, land or buildings, anything that would increase the value. And as you see these examples, these are somewhat outside of the ordinary. So there is a pre-approval process for you to reach out to us as the state agency to get approval before you enter these items in your Achieve budgets. And so we have captured here the specific rules regarding these types of expenditures. Now, I want you to zero in on rule number 2 there, where it talks about capital expenditures for special purpose equipment that are allowable as direct costs, and with a unit price of $5,000 or more. Many of you who work in EGMS and create budgets, you know that these items are captured in Object Code 700. So the actual application review process takes care of those types of items. But we have here another process to take care of the rules 1 and 3. And you'll see at the bottom of this slide, we have actually the form that you are to access, as well as the location of this form on our FSGR library. We want you to get accustomed to going to that library because we have so many various resources that will assist you in the budgeting and planning process. So a couple of just highlights from this. Number 1, we have a pre-approval process now. You don't no longer have to send emails to us haphazardly. We actually have a form that we're going to collect that information. And 2, we have the location of it in our FGS library, and we've given much priority to making sure that we get those, that process, get your items approved expeditiously so that you can get them in your budget, hopefully, once we approve them. All right. Now, another reminder on the next slide, we want to talk about reporting. Many of you love to hear that word reporting. As you know, as Danielle so eloquently shared, all of the funding that our state is going to receive from ED, and we already received those GANs, but along with those funds come reporting requirements. And one of the things that we are focusing on here at the agency, as Danielle mentioned, we have the priority and focus areas. And we receive, believe it or not, many requests from stakeholders wanting to know about your school system, how you're doing spending funding, what are you spending those funds on? And so we, as Ed has asked us to have made mechanisms to be transparent in displaying that information. So we have actually created a dashboard that's going to report out on your expenditures. And so along with that dashboard, where we report out on those expenditures, we have the other reporting requirements that the U.S. Department of Education requires us to send them. Many of you are already experiencing an aspect of that, in that we have an ESSER in our Strong Start app. We actually have a page where we're collecting information from you to fulfill those reporting requirements with the feds. So in summary, with the reporting, there's one where the LDOE is going to exercise its transparency protocols and reporting out in a dashboard on expenditures according to our priority and focus areas. And then the other major piece will be that we will collect information as articulated by Ed regarding what we have to send to them. And we will be letting you know what those particulars are as we receive the FAQs and the guidance from Ed. So just be prepared as we engage you around reporting to get that information to us expeditiously. All right. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Mitchell, I believe, right?
Yes, thanks so much, Burnell, and thank you for that good information. So before we get into the exciting stuff in terms of the planning guidance initiatives and those resources, just want to reiterate the importance of these one-time funds and really encouraging our school systems to not approach this as an immediate one-time or seasonal planning opportunity, but really looking at how they can make sure that they're meeting the needs of their students in a very strategic and coordinated way over the course of the next 3 academic years. These funds go through September 30th, 2024. So our school systems should really be approaching this in terms of establishing multi-year budgets. We at the department will continue to provide resources, learning experiences, and opportunities for collaboration and coordination throughout the summer for school systems to enhance and expand their planning. Additionally, we just want to make sure that school systems know we believe that our students, that our plan should be very responsive to our students, and therefore we know that school systems may submit amendments to their budgets that they want approved in June. So we encourage our school systems to not delay in making those adjustments if it best meets the needs for their students. But additionally, to remember these one-time funds, we do have access to them over the course of the next 3 academic years. So making sure that our efforts are strategic and coordinated. Now, to help establish the planning for those strategic and coordinated efforts, I'm so excited to turn this over to our Director of Operational Initiatives, Katie Perry, who will now take us through this part.
Thank you, Danielle. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to now go into the discussion of the planning resources and priorities aligned initiatives that are available to our school systems within the Achieve guidance documents. So just as a reminder, Danielle went over these already in the initial portion of the presentation, but these are the department's 6 critical goals. And so what you're going to see within the next upcoming slides is going to be aligned to the work that's moving the needle on these 6 critical goals. In terms of the priorities-based strategic planning, again, this is something you saw within Danielle's portion of the presentation, but just as a reminder, we are asking school systems to first plan for the spending of those ESSER 1 funds that are remaining, and then shifting focus to planning for the allocations and utilization of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds. Our Achieve Planning's guiding document was developed to support our school systems with planning for the budgeting of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 formula funds. department has developed the guidance, and within the guidance are new, updated, and also previously released high impact initiatives that are aligned to each of the priorities and the focus areas. Through planning for the utilization of these funds, school systems are able to commit to the priorities from the Believe to Achieve Priorities Plan, identify key stakeholders who should be a part of the Achieve planning team, and use 3 key resources while planning with the Achieve planning team. The 3 key resources are the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 allowabilities from ED, the Achieve planning guidance document, and the EIC codes. There's also additional resources that the department has developed that can be utilized in preparation for completing the application, and we'll go through that guidance within the upcoming slides. So just to give you an idea of how the planning guidance for Achieve is organized, there are 4 components, and you'll see the table and how it's actually situated within the document, but it's organized by the actual priorities of the department. And so under each priority, the department has identified associated focus areas, as well as aligned initiatives and resources. We're also developing and continuously updating, and we'll be releasing today, the library for the pandemic guidance, as well as a library for Achieve that contains all the resources for school systems to access. So just to ground us again in the educational priorities of the department, as I mentioned and as Danielle has mentioned, these priorities have laid the foundation of the work and the guidance that was developed within Achieve. So as we're progressing through the next few slides, you will see that the priorities are at the initial starting point of the tables within the guidance documents that are being released. And so those priorities will in turn be associated with the focus areas and the initiatives and resources from the department. So this is the first priority within the guidance document. So as an example, the organization of the first priority, like I just mentioned, that priority being to ensure every student is on track to a professional career, college degree, or service. You see the organization of the priority guidance has the priority at the top of the table, with the first column of the table specifying the focus areas associated with that priority. And then after the focus areas, there's a column with initiatives. So I mentioned previously, but just to reiterate, some of these initiatives are new initiatives, updated initiatives, or previously pushed out initiatives from the department. As we're going through the next few slides, I'm going to be starring the ones and calling out specifically those initiatives that are new from the department within this Achieve guidance launch. And then in the last column, as you see here, you have your resources. So the department has developed resources that are specific to each of those initiatives to, of course, support our school systems with planning for committing to those initiatives and developing their Achieve budgets. The second priority of removing barriers and creating equitable, inclusive learning experiences for all students is within the guidance as well. As you can see, we have starred some of the initiatives, the prioritizing SEL, early and accurate identification through high quality assessments, and expanded pre-K or B3 seats are all new initiatives from the department. And you can also see, like I mentioned before, the respective and associated resources which are accessible for you. The third priority of providing the highest quality teaching and learning environment from birth through graduation also has new initiatives from the department. The high quality LMS, supporting pre-K first grade transitions, is one from our early childhood team. And once again, resources from previously released initiatives as well as the new initiatives are there for you in that last column. The next priority of developing and retaining a diverse, highly effective educator workforce has one new initiative being pushed out of differentiated compensation models, and we have linked the Achieve compensation guidance there for our school systems. And finally, the last priority of cultivating high impact systems, structures, and partnerships has one new initiative being pushed out of scheduling and staffing supports 2.0, and those resources are there for you. So getting into the actual Achieve planning teams, Danielle just gave you a high level of the 3 steps within the planning for this work and pushing out the Achieve budgets. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail at this point on 6 steps for your planning teams to take. Of course, that first step, as you see here on the slide, is determining the appropriate stakeholders for the team. So as we get into this step, we wanted to provide just a few recommendations with the caveat that this slide is, of course, not an all-encompassing list in terms of stakeholders that could participate within the Achieve planning teams. But just to name a few, district leaders, of course, from operations teams, curriculum and instruction teams, assessment and accountability, professional development, fiscal operations, SPED, and EL. School leaders could also participate as stakeholders, administrators from a variety of schools, CIR, UIRA, UIRD, content leaders, instructional coaches, and also mentor teachers. Our teachers as well participating as stakeholders on these teams, parents and guardians, and then lastly, community organizations. So once the school system has established those planning teams, the second step is for the members of the planning team to review the ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 allowabilities documents. So we have linked here a few of those documents, and of course these documents are also accessible within the Achieve guidance document that is being released. The first resource that you see linked is Ed Allowabilities. This document is specifically the allowabilities from the United States Department of Education for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. The second link that you see is an allowable uses slide deck that provides school systems with examples of specific things that could be funded with each allowability of ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. And then the third link that you see there is an allowability crosswalk document, which was also developed by the department for the release of Achieve to support our school systems with determining high impact investments. So we're going to go through the next few slides and you'll get to see screenshots of what those documents look like. This is the slide deck that I mentioned. So as you can see, the initial slide shows the allowability. So each of the 15 allowabilities have their own slide. And then under the actual allowability on the slide is an example slide following each allowability being defined for school systems. The third document that we had on that last slide that was linked is the allowability cost guidance crosswalk. And so this particular document allows for school systems to access the Ed allowabilities in the far left column, then the high impact investments, which these are all clickable links to other documents, then the example cost ranges per unit, as well as the aligned LDOE priorities. So this is an example of what you receive once you click on one of those links from the allowability document. And this one in particular is the hiring investment examples document. So as you can see, it goes into more detail of specific investments that school systems can make in hiring additional staff or contracting with partners. You're given the unit for each of those example investments, as well as an example cost, and then also considerations when planning to make that investment. So now that we have our team established and all team members have looked at the different documents and resources in terms of the allowabilities for ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, the next step, step 3, is for school systems to determine their needs based on data. And so on this slide, we've simply provided some examples of data that could be relevant to this step within the process. Of course, we have our high quality assessments, observational data, attendance data for teachers and students, survey data that's been captured over the year, literacy data, and then intervention data as well. Once again, this is not an all-encompassing list, but this is just an idea to get school systems started with thinking of different data that is out there and accessible for them to view and to analyze. In step 4, we are reviewing the Achieve priority alignment and planning support within the actual Achieve planning guidance. So these are those tables that we just referenced moments ago where I pointed out the new initiatives from the department. And so within this step, the Achieve planning teams will be looking at the different initiatives, the priorities associated, as well as the resources within this guidance document. At this point in step 5, the planning team will have an opportunity to really commit to the different initiatives that align to the needs that have been identified through the data analysis that's been conducted. And so as you can see here, we have a little example from Excellent School System. So they've analyzed their data on IGPs, and they've determined that they need to improve in the area of students within our high school grade levels having IGPs. So they are committing to the initiative of individual graduation planning partners. So the Achieve planning team for that school system will be viewing the resource that is linked to that particular initiative and determining which planning partners for IGPs they can partner with in order to support that improvement for their students. And then in step 6, the school system will go into even greater detail in that resource to be able to, again, determine that partner and address those needs. The EGMS Achieve application and budget information. So now that we have discussed the planning process and those 6 steps for school systems, we're going to transition into the budget information and application of EGMS when you're completing that application in the system. There have been a few changes, and we'll go through those changes that are particular to the Achieve application in just a few moments. But first, we wanted to show you another important piece of guidance that is within the Achieve guidance document, and that's relevant to the reporting and coding, specifically relevant to those EIC codes that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. On this chart, you'll see the type of expenses by EIC, the actual EIC code, as well as a check in columns for ESSER 1, 2, and 3. What these 3 columns denote is which EIC codes are applicable to the ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funding sources. What you'll also see on this table, and there's a note in the bottom row, is that any EIC code, and you see those here in the middle, that are bolded or have an asterisk prefaced in front of them, those EIC codes are applicable to the new 20% of funds that Danielle mentioned previously for ESSER 3, so those evidence-based funds. This is a screenshot for you of the EGMS overview page. And so on this page is just the basic information as you typically see when it comes to the Achieve application. Once you get into the allocations page within EGMS, you'll see 2 buckets on this page of where you will see the actual funding for this application. The first being ESSER 2 formula, and the second being the ESSER 3 EB interventions. And of course, I believe Danielle mentioned it before, but this stands for the ESSER 3 evidence-based interventions. Those 2 same funding sources are on the budget detail page, where you'll be selecting the fund appropriate for the line item that you're budgeting. So you'll again see ESSER 2 formula as well as ESSER 3 EB interventions. For the EIC codes, school systems will see the full list of EIC codes that we went over within the previous table. That is also, again, accessible through the Achieve guidance document. So this is a new addition to the EGMS consolidated budget page, and this is particular to the priority areas. So as you've seen, the Achieve guidance and planning support is aligned to the priorities of the department. So school systems will have the opportunity here to drop down to the priority that aligns to the item that they are budgeting within their Achieve application. Once a school system selects a particular priority, the focus area column is going to automatically display the focus areas that are associated with those priorities within the educational priorities plan. So at this point, the school system is able to select the focus area that again aligns to the budgeted item that they're entering into the detail section. So those are the changes within EGMS. Another change that the department has developed and we are newly releasing is the Pandemic Relief Funding Planning Guidance and Resources page. So this is a new landing page that is already live if you go onto the Louisiana Believes website. And so that is accessible through this button on the left, which has the yellow arrow next to it. There is also a new Achieve and Believe library, and those are accessible through this rectangular box on the home screen, which I'm sure you've seen the different opportunities and things that scroll at the top. So there is now a button for that. It will take you to that actual library. This is a picture, a screenshot of the screen that you will be taken to if you click that circular button. So this is the layout and the format of the Pandemic Relief Funding Planning Guidance and Resources library. As you can see towards the bottom of this screen, there is a blue bar here that allows you to go to the COVID-19 library. So we have removed that at this point from the home screen. And then also below the COVID-19 is the button to access anything from the Strong Start library. So I just want to make it known here that the department is working currently to consolidate these libraries to allow school systems to access resources easily within one place. You also see here on the left-hand side where my arrows are pointing that there is a circle with Believe as well as a circle with Achieve. So by clicking either of these circles, school systems will be taken directly to that particular planning guidance document for either Believe or Achieve. And the final update when it comes to the online access and the new releases from the department is the new Pandemic Relief Library. So within this library, it houses the Believe office information, the Achieve office hours information, as well as any relevant resources for those two things. So if you scroll down this page, you'll see the early childhood guidance as well as early childhood resources. You will also see the pre-K-12 guidance as well as all the pre-K-12 resources. So any of the information within the Achieve and Believe guidance documents are accessible here under the resources section. At this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Danielle so she can close us out and also discuss the timeline once more.
Thank you so much, Katie, and thank you for all of that information. Again, we've created this one website so that there is a single stop shop for all of the COVID-related information, and we hope that you find that useful. We will be developing that over the next week to make sure that the most pertinent information is quickly accessible and visible. So right now, I'm going to actually just run through the timeline really quickly before I get to the support and then invite Dr. Brumley on to actually close us out. So as a reminder, today we're posting the estimated allocations on the website along with our planning guidance, which we know a lot of you are eager to see. And we will drop that link into the chat at the end of the call. Tomorrow, your applications in EGMS will be opened and you all can begin entering your budgets. Again, we very much encourage you to get together with your team and make sure that you're really stretching these funds out and envisioning how you can provide quality learning experiences for your students over the next 2 to 3 years to really make sure that they're getting all of the support needed to adequately address some of the impacts from COVID-19 over this year. By June 1st, budgets will be approved and LEAs can start drawing down those funds. We will be providing more information on the upcoming allocations for the remaining ESSER 3 formula funds in the coming weeks. And so lastly, we just want to remind everyone of the support. So for additional support with completing these, the Achieve application, updates will continue to be shared through the Achieve office hours, the online library, LDOE newsletters, the monthly system leaders calls, the monthly federal support and grantee relations calls. And once again, if you have any questions regarding Achieve, please contact ldoe.grantshelpdesk@la.gov and enter Achieve into the subject line. We want to thank everyone for joining today, and we look forward to continue to support the school systems and the Achieve student process. Now, I'm going to invite Dr. Brumley on to close us out.
Hey, thanks Danielle, Katie, Burnell for all of your work facilitating this conversation today. Really grateful for your efforts and presenting the information and all the work that has gone into building out the guidance that we're making available here today. Look, I just want to take a moment while I have so many of you on the call and just thank all of you for your work over the course of this year. You know, I look across the country and see many cities trying to figure out, you know, and states, how do we keep kids and employees safe and how do we provide an education at the same time? And, you know, we as an educational community here in Louisiana have managed to do both of those things, and that's because of you. In fact, the American Enterprise Institute recently released a bit of information that said that Louisiana had the 8th most aggressive opening plan during the pandemic than any state in the country. And that is because we work together. And right now we have the 7th greatest percentage of kids in full face-to-face instruction every day across the country as well. So I'm really thankful for all of you who have worked so hard every day to figure all this out. The logistics required to pull off schooling in a pandemic, the courage that has been required. I just want to take a moment and say thank you. When we're looking specifically at the funding that has been made available to us over 3 different appropriations, last March, this December, and this March, it is and can be very overwhelming. If you are there at the system level and you're thinking about all of the decisions that you have to make, all of the responsibilities that you have, and adding that on to the fact that you are still trying to operate through this pandemic, it is not lost on us how this can feel overwhelming, because it is overwhelming. We want to be here to support you through this. Know that we will be here to support you through this, but we also believe this is an incredible opportunity. The infusion of dollars that we have should put us in a position that we can maintain safely having our schools open for every kid across this state. We should be able to have the mitigation efforts that are required to be able to have schools safely. And it's an incredible opportunity to do that, but it's also an opportunity to recover any learning that needs to be recovered, or accelerate learning that needs to be accelerated, and put us in a better posture once we're post-pandemic as a state as a whole. And so I don't want you to lose focus of the incredible opportunity this is. And as you think about expending these resources, let's not think about it in terms of how can we spend this money over the next 2 to 3 months, or how can this money be utilized over the next 6 months. Sit down and let's think about how we can utilize this funding over the next few years in a multi-year plan to put us in a much better position as we will be able to show that we have supported our kids in the way that they deserve to be supported, as well as our educators and our families and our community as a whole. I want to encourage everyone to certainly look at the Believe to Achieve guidance that we have put out in January. It is aligned to everything that you saw here today, and everything that you saw here today is directly aligned to that document. We have taken the federal allowabilities for these funds, crosswalked those against Louisiana priorities, and we have the opportunity right here and right now to all go in these same areas and make a big time collective impact across our state. And for that, I'm very hopeful. You know, there are areas such as literacy improvement, or most immediately as we're thinking about robust summer programming, or moving into next year, thinking about best practices around professional development embedded into the school day and teacher leadership. We have so many opportunities here that we need to make sure that we are making the most of the funding that we are receiving. As we go into, many of us, a long weekend coming up, I just want to reiterate my thanks to you. It's been a tough and challenging year, but we are doing it. We are doing it together, and our agency stands ready to continue to support you however we might be able to do that. So you just let us know. Thanks, Danielle, Lexi behind the scenes, Katie and Burnell for making today's presentation, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon.